Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing a load for the 142 grain Sierra Matchking in 6.5 Creedmoor. I've got a PRS-style precision rifle match coming up in about 3 weeks here, and I need to get a load nailed down for it. If you'll remember, we've already done a load with the 140 grain Sierra Matchking, but I only had 100 of those at the time, and of course with the component shortage, I have not been able to find any more of those. That's all right. The 142 grain Matchking is the one that I probably should have gotten a hold of in the beginning. This is the one with the high BC. This bullet is actually pointed as it comes from the factory. I was able to pick up 700 of these. Clear back probably a year ago, placed a back order for these bullets from Midway for 200 of them, which was the limit on the back order at the time. And then I was able to get a batch of 500 of them, all in the same lot number. Kind of right in the middle of the shortage, I got an ammo seek alert. They probably lasted for not much more than an hour. I was able to buy 500 of them in the same lot from Mid-South Shooter Supply, which was way more than any limit that I could find anywhere else. So I was able to get these for actually a halfway decent price. And then I forgot to cancel my back order at Midway, so I got another 200 of them. Those 200 were in the same lot number, and the 500 are in the same lot number. So I'm going to start with that, with the lot number that I have 500 of. That's the lot number ending in 89595, if that makes any difference to anybody out there. All right, first let's go over the components. So I already talked about the bullet. We're going with H4350 powder. I do have several more pounds of this, just a little bit left in this pound, but I've got more, either a pound or two in this same lot number as well, within just a few jar numbers of each other. Then CCI 450 Magnum small rifle primers, brand new Starline small rifle primer pocket brass. I've got a new batch of 250 of these, so I'm gonna do this entire load workup and batch of ammo for the PRS load, all with new brass. Next time around, of course, it'll be already fired, but I can't afford to just shoot 250 shots to fire form this brass, especially since I really can't get any more primers right now. I am thankful to have a couple thousand of these CCI 450s, so that is what we're going to use, even though I do use these for quite a few other loads, including just about everything in 6.5 Grendel, but they are what I have the most of as far as Magnum small rifle primers. I think that covers just about everything. I am doing a few things just a little bit different in this video. As I've done before, I am going to prep this brass before loading it. I did go back and watch my video on the 140 grain Matchking, and was glad I did, because I talked about in that video how the neck tension would be way too much just loading how they have it, and a couple of these are just a little bit dinged up as well, not too bad, but I am going to prep this brass. Instead of just running it through the full length sizing die like I've been doing, I did pick up one of these expander dies from 21st Century Reloading. I think 24th Century Shooting, I think they're now 21st Century Innovations or something like that. But I've got the new Generation X body of the die with the little window in it. That could be nice there, so I'm not running into the top. I am running a 262 expander mandrel in there. These little expander mandrels are about 20 bucks a piece. Because they're that expensive, I didn't buy several different sizes to try, going with this size specifically on the recommendation of Bolt Action Reloading. He has done a whole lot of work with the expander mandrels, figuring out what works best, and he has had best luck with 2/1000 under bullet diameter for the expander. I am going to measure what kind of neck tension we get with the method that you measure the case before and after seating the bullet. as well, just so that I have some kind of comparison to how I've been doing things before and if it actually makes any difference in that dimension. So with that in mind, I'm going to pop out the expander in my full-length sizing die, and full-length size all of these pieces of brass without the expander button, I guess you would call it, in the die. Now, let me just go ahead and measure this and see what that gives us. Just out of curiosity. That's kind of interesting. Our expander button in the full-length sizing die is 262. So theoretically, it'll give us the same neck tension, except we're going to be moving in this direction instead of pulling it back through, which from what I've heard is a lot better on the brass. So I'll set this aside for now. We're not going to be using that. I'll just use some of this Imperial sizing die wax to lube the neck and gently on the body. Shouldn't need a whole lot of lube for this. Since the brass is new, oh, I suppose I need to lock down my die there. No, barely any resistance at all. All right, I'll set that to the side. This would be a good time to measure how small this die actually squishes the neck down. So let me do that here. As the brass comes from the factory, oh, you know what? That's kind of a messed up piece. Let me pick one that's more in round. Starline does recommend that you run this through a full-length sizing die because they do know that their brass gets a little dinged up in the bag as it comes. Let's see, I've got 285. Yeah, 285 on that. We'll run it up into the die. Barely any effort whatsoever. 283 is what it's looking like there. 284, 283. So it's actually not knocking it down much more than the much more than it comes from the factory. So that's good. Not overworking the brass here, I don't think then. So I'm just going to continue going through these with a very light lube. This die is set to bump the shoulder back about 0.02 from fired. In fact, I've got it set right at 0.02. But of course, we're not going to be touching the shoulders at all right now since it's new brass. So it's really not working the brass very much at all. I just want to run them all through so that they're consistent and we even out the necks. So I'm going to run these through and then I'll come back to you when we start setting up the expander mandrel die. Okay, that is all 25 pieces that we're using for this test run through the full length die. So I'll pop that out. And let's get in a fresh lock and load bushing here. So you need some kind of lubricant to run these. And what a lot of guys use and what I would like to have is the Imperial dry neck lube that you just dip it in and then run it through that way. Well, I don't have any of that yet. I've got it in my Midway cart, haven't got it ordered quite yet. So what I'm going to do is lube up the expander mandrel pretty darn good before I stick it in there. And then I'll probably, after the first case or two, I'll probably lube the mouth of each case just a little bit, kind of like I would where we're using the expander button. Or expander ball, I guess that's what most guys call it. So we'll go with calling this a mandrel and this a ball, even though it's not really ball shaped. So I'll drop this in there, put the cap on, And then I guess what I'll do is let's run that shell up into the press and screw this down. Oh, before I do that, let's talk about this die just a little bit. When I paid, I'll have to look up exactly what I paid, but it seems like for this and this I ended up paying about 80 bucks. So 20 bucks, 17, somewhere in there for the mandrel, and then 50 to 60 for the die body. I expected this to be steel. I really did. This is super kind of thin aluminum, and I hope it holds up. I don't see why it wouldn't. The expander mandrel does, you can hear it float around in there a little bit, even with that cap all the way down. I don't know if that matters or not. Maybe that's good so that it self-centers just a little bit. I don't know. But I expected it to be made out of steel when I got it. So that's, you know, that might be okay, but just an observation. So I'm going to screw that in until we make contact. I know about how far to go. I'm going to go down like a turn there. Okay, we're up onto the mandrel. I want to go until I see that case in the window there. And go 2 full turns down. Let me go 1 more. Yeah. I want to make sure I've got... Let's go 1 more turn. There we go. I want to make sure that the mandrel goes all the way down through the entire neck and isn't stopping before it hits that bottom. And trying to see where that is. Yeah, we should be well above the taper on that mandrel right there. The trouble is, once I get the lock ring on, I don't think I'm going to be able to see in that window, but it shouldn't bump into the top. I can see all of it from there, and I probably don't even need the lock ring. Oh, I can't get it on from the top because it's knurled. Alright, so I know where that's at. Oh, I need an Allen wrench to loosen that. Probably have one of the right size on the bench here. They did not include one in the bag, which is fine. I've got a ton of Allen wrenches of various sizes just from all of the other reloading equipment. Those threads feel... Oh, and I dropped my set screw. Ah, there's a little plastic ball in one of these set screw holes. I thought the threads felt terrible, but I think it's just a friction lock in that hole. Which is okay, I guess. Ugh, sounds terrible. Alright, that's where it was. I can still see in there a little bit to confirm that it's not hitting the top, but where that is, I guess with 6.5 Creedmoor anyway, makes that window a little less useful. I'll see if I can find my set screw before it's gone forever. No, pretty sure that set screw's gone forever. That's okay, it's not really that necessary. This thing isn't going to try to back itself out. In fact, I probably don't even need the lock ring on there. That looks like it worked nicely. So I'm just going to run through these now. Now, yeah, I think I'm going to lube every one. That one felt a little bit rough. Not like it took a lot of force to push up in there, it just felt a little on the rough side. So I'm going to lube the next. I'll just kind of do this method right here where I put a little right on the inside of the case mouth. That should distribute lube pretty evenly through the necks. And that's really all there is to that. Alright, I did go through, after I ran them through the expander mandrel and checked them for overall length and they are 1 to 2 thousandths below trim length, and they seem fairly consistent. Most of them are measuring at 1.9. Let me just measure it here so I'm not fibbing. Yeah, that one's 1.910, which is exactly trim length. Most of them are 1.909 or 1.9085, what they're measuring there. So I'm not going to worry about trimming these. We'll probably do it on the next firing, but they're consistent enough within 1 or 2 thousandths of each other. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to give these a light chamfer and deburr with the hand tool. I don't think the VLD tool on the Frankfurt Arsenal Prep Center is consistent enough. It wobbles a little bit. Sometimes it grabs more than I'd like to. And these are the loads that I am most concerned about precision with. So we're going to do the hand tool for today. I will run through these, and then I think I'll throw them in the wet tumbler to get all that lube off. I have been doing the dry tumbler to get the lube, but then we end up having to brush them out quite a bit. You know what? There's so much room in that wet tumbler. These have a lot of room to clink into each other, and I don't want to mess up the necks. I don't think it probably would at all, but since we have them set so precisely, here's what we'll do. I'm going to run them through the dry tumbler, and then we'll just do a really good job brushing them out with this case brush afterwards. Yeah, let's do that. So brass prep should be complete now. I have full length sized with the expander ball removed, expanded the necks with a 262 mandrel, chamfered and deburred inside and outside, dry tumbled for 1 hour, and then brushed the cases out with a nylon brush. I did have to modify this brush a little bit. It had a bend over on the end of it, and it would not go inside the neck. I just snipped off the end where it was bent over, made sure it wasn't losing any bristles off the end, which it was not, and then it fits down inside the case just fine and is able to brush them out really nicely. I've got somewhere case brushes that are the right size for, I think, both 224 and 264 necks. I don't know where they went. I looked all over for them for 15 or 20 minutes, couldn't find them, so I made this one work, and it worked just fine. I don't know actually where this brush came from. It doesn't really matter though. Okay, so the brass is prepped. I've got the scale warming up. It's been warming up for a few minutes now. We're gonna go ahead and prime using these CCI 450s. This is nothing special, so I'll probably zip through this pretty quick. I'm using the green plate for the Hornady priming tool here. I haven't managed to upgrade this yet. That's coming in the future. The green plate because we're using an RCBS shell holder. It's got a little bit different geometry of this part to fit. I believe the RCBS shell holder has a tighter hole up the center than the Hornady ones do. So that's what we're doing there. I'll just flip out 30 primers in there. We can put the 5 back. We'll get this brass primed up. Like I said, I will be replacing this hand primer eventually. It works great for large primers, but small primers like to flip unless you're really careful. There's just too much room inside there. Starline brass, as always, the primer pockets feel great and fairly consistent. I am checking each one of these to make sure that there's no tumbling media left in the flash holes. That does happen once in a while. I'm seating to just at the where I feel it stop. I'm not giving it a little extra squeeze. It feels perfect, just below flush or right at flush, somewhere in there. Yeah, feels pretty good. that is primer seating. Get the shell holder back in, the press ram there, put the primers away, and we'll move on to powder charge weighing. And there's going to be nothing different or fancy about the way I measure this powder. I am going to trickle it just like I do on all my precision rifle loads. Get all the dust out of my trickler here. Yeah, we'll do the bowl, lee scoop, and trickling method. I suppose, yeah, there'll be plenty of powder in this canister for this test run anyway. I suppose I should talk about what charge weights I'm using. So in the, I'll put the information up on the screen here so I don't have to blind you all with a white paper. In the 140 grain Matchking series, the load I ended up on was 41.6 grains of powder. Doing some research online shows that for any of the 140 grain class bullets for Sierra, folks find a node right around 41.5 grains, plus or minus a few tenths. So that is reassuring to find that what we found on the channel here is consistent with what everybody else is finding. Because of that, 41.6 grains, as we found last time, is going to be the very middle charge. We're going to go 2 below and 2 above in 4/10 increments. So we're starting at a low charge of 40.8 grains and going up to 42.4. I'm not doing the Satterley type of load workup that I have done on the last couple of videos. We're just going to go ahead and shoot a whole 25 shot powder charge workup and see what we get there. If the accuracy isn't quite what I'm looking for, if I think we need to tighten things up a little bit, we'll play with the seating depth from there once we settle on a powder charge. So I'm assuming that that 41.6 grain number is going to be what we're going to use for this one, but I don't know that for sure. That's why we're doing the test. So that is the load data. I guess I'll charge 1 or 2 cases here on video before I switch things over. I don't remember at all what powder scoop to use. 40.8 is the low charge. I threw 41.8 with the 2.8. Let's go for just under full. Yeah, that's 37 grains. So we're going to be able to find one right in there using the 2.8 cc scoop. You know what, I am going to move my stuff over here so that I can get my hand in better. All on the side of this press. Now that I've added my progressive press over here, I've got a little bit less room on the bench and everything's a little more cramped. Not too bad at all. I do have the inline fabrication ultra mount quick change plate for this thing, so I'll eventually probably put a flush mount plate on here so that I can just take the press off and stick it over in this holder. You can barely see it on the video there. Over here and kind of get it out of the way when I'm not actually using the press, but I don't have that yet. I'll also be able to use this in the taller mount if I want to load standing up, which I might want to do when I'm loading this load in bulk when we finally get there. All right, 40.8 grains. Finally got the trickler full. Scale's reading like it should, so that's good. 40.8 grains. Okay, that is all there's going to be to the powder weighing. Of course, it's not going to take quite as much fiddling with the trickler on subsequent loads because it's now all full of powder and everything. So anyway, I'm going to get these 25 cases charged with powder at our 4 different steps, and then we'll get to bullet seating. Powder is weighed. Time to see some bullets. I'm going to leave my scale on just in case I have to redo a charge for any reason, because I tend to be clumsy and drop some things sometimes. For bullet seating depth, I have already measured my jam length, and that is, for me, in my barrel, at 2.271 inches cartridge base to ogive of the bullet. Let me take a quick reading just for the heck of it and see what that overall length comes out to be. 2.869. What I'm going to do is use that to set up my bullet seating die. I do already have the micro just seating stem put on here. I'm going to back it way out. You know what? Before we do that, let me see if this seating stem fits the bullet well. You know what? That seating stem seems to fit that bullet just about perfectly. So I'm just going to go with the seating stem that was in there. That is, oh, this actually does have a part number. 397106. I think this is the one that I bought for, I think this was the 140 grain ELD labeled seating stem. I could be wrong on that. Okay, oh yeah. Put this guy back in there. Backed way out. Okay, it actually may be touching there. Yeah, I'm pushing that back into the case. And I'll get the comparator on here. 2.271 was the jam. I'm looking to seat to 2.251. So I'll get the comparator on there, zero out the calipers. And I'm guessing I accidentally pushed it too far. Yeah, I did. All right, this is too much of a pain to mess with because it is so easily moved around in the case. Let me get a bullet here. And we'll do it that way. I did back out the seating stem. You know what? Let's go even further. I don't want to seat these too deep. Let's see where we are. 2.305. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 thousandths down on there. And that got me right to where we expected, 2.255. So I'll come down 4 to our target of 2.251. I could have gone 2.250 just to make things easy, but I like being exact. So we're going exactly 20 thousandths shorter than jam. Oh, we actually got 2.250 anyway. You know what? I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it alone. $2.250. Okay. Let's take a look here at this other case, because this is going to show us where the boat tail of the bullet is sitting. All right, well, that actually seated it a few thousandths deeper, but anyway, you should still be able to get the idea. The start of the boat tail is sitting not all the way down to the neck shoulder junction, and that's okay. Not worried about that at all. If we do get some case donuts at some point in the future, that should avoid too many problems with those. So I don't know much about that subject yet, just been starting to read up on it, and maybe that'll help us out. I don't know. Anyway, that is the overall length we're going with, or rather this is, but it's just a few thousandths difference. I always say this, I know, but that is a sweet looking round. set this aside and we'll seat the rest of these bullets. I am using my standard rifle bullet seating method of going about halfway, turning the case a fourth or a half a turn, and finishing the seat. All right, 2.251. So we're right in that area. That is going to be just fine. I'm going to turn off the calipers here. Not going to need those again. We're not sitting down on the powder at all. The powder charges are all just below that neck-shoulder junction, so we're not going to be compressed whatsoever, not even going to be touching the powder. So that's going to be about it for bullet seating, I guess. Since that is out of the way, let's just get out to the range and shoot these. I almost forgot that I promised to measure neck tension in my standard way for comparison purposes. So let's do that. I kind of want to know this myself. We're starting out with 0.287. Take that a couple of times. 0.288 maybe. Let's go with 0.288. Seat the bullet. And we've got 0.290, right at that 2,000ths that we kind of expected. All right, that's good enough for me. All right, folks, we're out on the range shooting my absolute favorite rifle. And this is the Bergara HMR Wilderness. The target is at 100 yards. I have put 3 shots through the gun, and there are the 3 shots that you see up there, just to kind of get it zeroed and warmed up just a bit. It's been a few minutes since then. Not expecting any pressure on these, but I will of course check. Today is the nicest day we've had in Tennessee for a good month and a half, 2 months now. It's about 73, 74 degrees. Wind is dead calm, and everything's looking good. So hopefully this bullet shoots well. I'm going to be starting out on the top left-hand target there, as per usual. But I hope I don't hit my target camera, which has to be a lot closer to the target now than it did when I had my long lens on my main photography camera down there. I'm going to use kind of a free float technique. I'm going to try to put as little influence into the rifle as possible. Don't know if that's the right technique to use, but I'm going to try to keep it consistent. Having my shoulder just on the rear of the gun, just enough to keep it from sliding back into my face. I guess I'll mention the scope is a Vortex Diamondback Tactical 4 to 16, yeah, by 44, I think is what it is. It is a first focal plane scope. Let's see what we can get. Oh, one thing I will note about the scope real quick that I had never noticed before is that the parallax knob, when set at 100 yards, still had quite a bit of parallax. When I had the gun stable like this and moved my head behind it, I could see the reticle moving around. Well, I have adjusted it a little bit. It's now on like the 150-ish mark. The parallax is much better. I can still see it moving just the tiniest bit, but it's not anything like it was. I'm going to try to keep a consistent cheek weld. In fact, let me adjust this a little bit. That's real nice right there, actually. Yeah, we're going to go with that. Try to keep a pretty consistent cheek weld throughout. Again, while not putting very much pressure on. Chronograph set up, though I'm not having the best faith in it right now. I've been given some pretty wild numbers. In 300 blackout anyway, which of course doesn't bear any resemblance to the Creedmoor, so hopefully it'll do better on these supersonic loads. Alright, off to the side of the paper there. That's okay. Oh, the brass, perfectly fine. I'll go ahead and shoot the group where it is, and then adjust afterwards. Didn't think I picked one up there. Yeah, I got locked up in my magazine. Never had that happen before. Yeah, it's working like it should now. I'll have to keep that in mind. Fed that time. Well, folks, I don't know if you can see that as well as I can on the target camera, but 4 of those shots just went into one hole, with the first shot just barely outside. I bet that's a 0.6 on the first group and like a 0.3 on the second 4. Well, okay. I'm going to go 3/4 of an MOA down and to the right. 2 MOA to the right. And that should put us where we want to be on the target. Good stuff on that first group. Hope that keeps up. Oh, just had some wind kick up from over this way. I'm going to give it a second for that gust to pass. Well, I'll take that. This is a factory rifle, folks. No pressure signs. I do have significant primer cratering, which this gun does. Primer's still super nice and round though. I may end up having this firing pin sleeved. This next one will be the 41.6 grain load we came up with as the best on the last test with the 140 grain Matchking. Let's shoot a bug hole with this one. What in the world? That was a good shot. I didn't pull it. Huh. Yeah, that group kind of fell apart a little bit. Oh yeah. Oh, we got a point of impact shift. 42 grains of H4350. From what I can tell, it's not too shabby of a group, but I think some of them are on that black ring, and I can't tell for sure. So, we'll just have to see. Last group, 42.4 grains. 4350. Well, that'll do to finish out the day. I'll have to look at the numbers more, but brass is looking good at that highest charge. Let's get back to the bench and take a little closer look. Let's get back to the bench and take a little closer look. All right, folks, so we're back at the bench taking a look at the target here. And there's some pretty interesting stuff here. First off, we've got some really good groups. That biggest group did open it up to almost an inch, but of course we're not going to use anything in that range there. The gun just doesn't seem to like it. But we started out with a .77, a .49, and the last group there was a .50. This one not too bad at .79, but obviously not what we're going for there. All right, the first major thing that we're going to look at is this point of impact shift, which we obviously started with this group, and that's why it was probably so large. But you can see we were shooting down here, and it does go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on those. This one group doesn't count, obviously, because I adjusted the scope afterwards, and then we ended up with that group. But from that group, we just slowly step up, and you can see that it was throwing one down there and threw the rest up there, and then it bumped up and we were throwing a couple there and the rest up there, which is even higher than that group, and then this group finally came all together clear up here. Would be interesting to see what the next one does, but that's going to be more pressure than I really want to get into with this load. The velocity for this one, we're looking at 2760 for an average, which is right on the high end of where I want to go. Could we go more? Yeah, probably, but I don't want to blow primers, especially in this gun that craters primers anyway. So 2663 is the velocity for the first one, 2692, and this is where we started getting good statistical numbers, or decent anyway. SD of 12, 12, 7, and 12. So we've got a good spot looking like right in here. Probably could explore where there should be a node right in here, and doing a little reading the guys on the forums do say there typically is a node around 42.5 grains on this, but also around 41.5. The trouble is, here at 41.5, we're going through a point of impact change with a velocity of 2692 on this load, and it was our best group. I'm not going to worry about that being a little lower than the 2750-ish area that might have been the target. For the match that I'm shooting in, and in all of my local matches, the furthest distance is comes out to just over 700 yards. I'm not shooting 1,000, not shooting 1,200 with this load, so that extra 50 feet per second, it doesn't really matter that much. And you can see that right in this area we're getting really consistent results. Now, should I try 41 grains right in between here and see what happens just to stay a little further away from here? Yeah, maybe. With this load getting just under 2,700 feet per second and it being the best one, I'm going to load up 3 5-shot groups at this charge weight and shoot them for confirmation. We are risking getting into this area, and I don't particularly like that, but remember we are trickling every charge, so we're going to be pretty much right on that 41.2 plus or minus a tenth, of course, with the accuracy of the scale. So we'll see. It's probably going to be close to 20 degrees warmer when I shoot 3 groups of this than when I first shot it, so that should give us a little bit of an idea of the swing. Today is 90 degrees rather than the 73, 74 it was when we shot these last time, so that might tell us something. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Did get to shoot some good groups today, which is always nice. If you did enjoy this, please subscribe to the channel. Remember that videos like this one that have reloading in them cannot really be monetized, so I am making 0 off of any of these videos. So if you guys do enjoy the channel, I would really appreciate it if you'd hop over to Patreon and maybe drop a little bit there. That would help with the bullet budget and let us test out a few more things. If you do have any questions, go ahead and drop it down in the comments below. I do try to get to every comment with a legitimate question. Again, thanks for watching, and y'all have a good one.